Welcome to True Crime Case Files, the podcast that dives deep into the most perplexing criminal investigations. Today, we explore a chilling case that left the affluent community of Scottsdale, Arizona in a state of disbelief. A murder in a mansion that left police baffled. Who could have done it? In the sun-baked heart of Scottsdale, Arizona, the summer of 2003 was marked by an event as tragic as it was mystifying. Amidst the national buzz of the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster recovery, a local story unfolded that would capture the attention of the community and the nation. James Bartley, 53, and his wife Claudette, 52, were the prosperous owners of a burgeoning car rental enterprise, a business that had recently been profiled in Entrepreneur magazine for its innovative customer service and aggressive expansion strategies. Their sprawling mansion, nestled in an exclusive gated community, was more than a home. It was a testament to their success and a beacon of the American dream realized. Educated at Harvard and Stanford respectively, the Bartleys were more than their alma mater's prestige. James, a visionary with an eye for untapped markets, was known for his regular features in car rental news, while Claudette's charitable work, particularly with the local chapter of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, had recently earned her a heartfelt write-up in Scottsdale living. The couple's two children, Amelia, a graduate of UCLA working for a tech startup in Silicon Valley, and Charles, completing his residency in cardiology at Johns Hopkins, reflected the couple's dedication to excellence and service. Described by friends as a pair of givers with an unquenchable zest for life, the Bartleys were planning their next venture, a luxury eco-resort that James had been detailing in conversations captured by the Phoenix Business Journal. In the days leading up to their tragic demise, the Bartleys were seen at the height of their social powers, hosting a benefit dinner for the Arizona Opera, their names etched on the event's glossy program as patrons. Little did the attendees know that this glittering evening would be the couple's last public appearance. On the sweltering morning of July 17, 2003, the idyllic peace of a Scottsdale suburb was shattered. Francine Gomez, a maid with a decade of service in the Bartley household, arrived at the grandiose mansion nestled within the exclusive Silverleaf gated community. It was shortly after 9 a.m. when she encountered a scene that would haunt the quiet enclave and capture the attention of the nation. Inside the mansion, a symbol of the Bartleys' self-made wealth, lay the bodies of James Bartley, 53, and his wife Claudette, 52. The couple was discovered in separate locations within their lavish residence, which was otherwise undisturbed, suggesting an air of premeditation to the crime. Claudette was found in the master bedroom, a bullet wound ending her life as she lay in bed. James was located in the hallway, his attempts to reach the phone cut tragically short. The local media, including the Arizona Republic, were quick to pick up the story, drawing comparisons to the opulence and tragedy of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. The community, which boasted high-profile residents and had been a bastion of safety, was now the backdrop for a real-life murder mystery. Gomez, in a state of shock from the grisly discovery, managed to dial 911 before succumbing to a faint on the manicured lawn outside, where she was later found by neighbors. The Scottsdale Police Department responded with a sense of urgency befitting the gravity of the crime. Detectives Matthew Riggins and Elisa Cortez arrived on-site to spearhead the investigation. They were faced with a crime scene that betrayed few clues, no sign of forced entry, no immediate weapon, and an unsettling lack of chaos. Amidst the silent walls adorned with art and the air still tinged with the scent of Claudette's preferred Jo Malone fragrance, they began the meticulous process of evidence collection. The Bartleys, who had graced the pages of Forbes just months earlier for their business acumen, were now central figures in a narrative of loss and mystery. The Scottsdale Police Department's rapid response to the Bartley residence was a stark contrast to the serene July morning of the 17th, 2003. The mansion, a fortress of modern luxury within the gated community, showed no signs of forced entry. The security system, equipped with the latest technology from ADT, had not been triggered. This pointed to the possibility that the perpetrator was someone familiar with the home's intricate defenses or had access to disable them. Inside, the detectives were met with a tableau of tragedy. Claudette Bartley was found in the master bedroom, life extinguished by a single gunshot. The room, usually a sanctuary of repose, was now marked by the violence of her passing. James Bartley lay in the hallway, his body telling the silent tale of an attempt to seek help, evidenced by his outstretched hand mere feet from a telephone. As the investigation unfolded, local news outlets like KSAZ-TV and the Scottsdale Progress reported live from the scene, their broadcasts punctuated by the somber coming and going of the forensic team. The detectives, methodical in their approach, collected fingerprints and DNA samples, while the absence of disturbance in the home suggested a targeted attack rather than a random act of violence. The community, which rarely graced the police blotter, was now under a microscope. The Bartleys, known for their philanthropic galas often featured in the society pages of Phoenix magazine, had become the subjects of a darker narrative. The police combed through the couple's financial records and personal effects, searching for any anomaly that could shed light on the motive behind the murders. As the sun set on Scottsdale, the case drew the attention of national media, with outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post picking up the story. The investigation was at the forefront of the evening news, as America grappled with the reality that such brutality could unfold in a setting of such perceived security and privilege. In the immediate aftermath of the Bartley homicides, Scottsdale Police Department's focus shifted to individuals with access to the mansion. Among them was Paulina Shaughnessy, a 34-year-old security guard responsible for patrolling the gated community on the night of the murders. With over a decade of experience in private security, Shaughnessy had built a reputation for being meticulous and stern, qualities that served her well in her line of work. Shaughnessy, who aspired to leverage her expertise to start her own security firm, found herself in the interrogation room facing seasoned detectives. The line of questioning was direct, probing for any discrepancies in her routine during the hours when the crime was estimated to have occurred. According to Shaughnessy, the night progressed without incident, a claim corroborated by logbook entries and routine check-ins that were standard protocol. However, a potential motive surfaced during the investigation. In a recent performance review, James Bartley had expressed dissatisfaction with Shaughnessy's work, a rare blemish on her otherwise stellar record. This critique had put her job security in jeopardy, a precarious position for someone with entrepreneurial ambitions. The detectives scrutinized Shaughnessy's movements and communications, cross-referencing her statements with the testimonies of other residents and employees. The July heat in Arizona, typically marked by headlines of soaring temperatures and monsoon predictions, was momentarily eclipsed by the media frenzy surrounding the case. Local news outlets like the Arizona Republic were quick to pick up on the story, drawing comparisons to the infamous Bob Crane murder in Scottsdale decades earlier. Shaughnessy maintained her composure throughout the interrogation, her demeanor unwavering as she insisted on her innocence. She pointed out her cooperation with law enforcement, her compliance with community regulations, and her lack of any direct financial or personal gain from the Bartleys' untimely demise. Despite the pressure of a high-profile murder case within the affluent community, no direct evidence emerged to tie Shaughnessy to the crime. The investigation continued, with detectives pursuing multiple leads. In the background, the nation's attention was divided, with many still reeling from the recent invasion of Iraq and the ongoing coverage by CNN and other major networks. As the police delved deeper, the Scottsdale community awaited answers, hoping for closure in a case that had exposed the underbelly of their suburban paradise. The investigation took a dramatic turn as detectives pursued a lead that seemed straight out of a Hollywood script. Danielle "Danny" Court-Ison, a 22-year-old Arizona State University alumna, found herself under the piercing gaze of the Scottsdale Police Department. Court-Ison, known among her peers as an effervescent and ambitious young woman, was balancing her aspirations with the reality of financial burdens, working at the local Hooters to pay off her student loans. Her connection to James Bartley was not immediately apparent until a clandestine relationship was uncovered. The affair, which began several months prior, cast a shadow of suspicion over Court-Ison. Detectives learned that Bartley, despite his public image as a devoted husband and successful businessman, promised Court-Ison a future that included financial support and the potential of a life together. During the interrogation, Court-Ison's demeanor oscillated between nervousness and assertiveness. She acknowledged the relationship but vehemently denied any involvement in the crime. Her potential motive hinged on the possibility that Bartley had reneged on his promises, leaving her future uncertain and her dreams derailed. The interrogation coincided with a period when national attention was fixated on the unfolding drama of the Laci Peterson case, with major outlets like Fox News and MSNBC providing daily updates. The Bartley case, with its own blend of personal intrigue and tragedy, added a local dimension to the media's coverage of crime and justice. As the detectives probed Court-Ison's alibi, they examined phone records, credit card statements, and her known whereabouts on the night of the murders. The Scottsdale community, still reeling from the shock, followed the case closely, with local media like KPHO-TV providing nightly updates on the investigation's progress. Despite the sensational elements of the affair, the evidence against Court Eisen was circumstantial. The detectives were meticulous, aware that any misstep could derail the case. They continued to peel back the layers of Courtesan's involvement, looking for the concrete evidence that would either implicate or exonerate her in the double homicide that had shaken the city to its core. The Scottsdale Police Department's investigation into the Bartley murders entered a critical phase when a new piece of evidence emerged. On July 20th, amidst the sweltering Arizona summer known for its punishing heat waves and the buzz around the release of Beyoncé's Crazy in Love, detectives uncovered a crucial lead. Traffic camera footage obtained from the vicinity of the Bartley's gated community revealed a nondescript van entering and exiting around the time the murders were believed to have occurred. The grainy images from the camera, which was installed at a nearby intersection as part of Scottsdale's efforts to modernize traffic management, became the focal point of the investigation. The van's movements were inconsistent with the typical patterns observed within the community, prompting detectives to look closer. The footage showed the vehicle's license plate, leading them to the van's owner, Brian Gradovich. Gradovich, a 39-year-old handyman, was known to the residents for his work in the local area, which often required early or late hours to accommodate homeowners' schedules. His role in the community was unremarkable, and he was often seen at the local Home Depot, purchasing supplies for his various projects. The revelation of the van's presence at the crime scene coincided with national news cycles dominated by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's color-coded threat level system and the Mars rover Opportunity, which NASA announced would be launched later in the month. Scottsdale residents, however, were more focused on the real-time drama unfolding in their backyard. Detectives Matthew Riggins and Elisa Cortez, tasked with piecing together the timeline of events, pored over the traffic camera footage, cross-referencing it with other evidence collected at the scene. The meticulous nature of their work reflected the high stakes of the case, which had captured the attention of local media outlets like the Arizona Republic, hungry for updates on the high-profile investigation. As the monsoon season approached, bringing with it the promise of relief from the relentless heat, the Scottsdale Police Department hoped the new evidence would provide a breakthrough in the chilling case. The community, still grappling with the violent breach of their affluent enclave, awaited answers with bated breath. The Scottsdale Police Department's investigation intensified as they turned their attention to Brian Gradovich, a 39-year-old local handyman and the registered owner of the van captured on traffic cameras. Gradovich was a familiar face in the community, often seen driving between jobs with a tool belt and a plan, his vehicle a fixture at construction supply giants like Lowe's. Gradovich's frequent presence in the gated community was not unusual, given the nature of his work. However, his proximity to the crime scene at the critical time frame placed him under the investigative microscope. Detectives meticulously examined his financial records, seeking any anomalies that could suggest a motive. They also scrutinized his cell phone records, looking for calls or messages that might tie him to the murders. During the interrogation, Gradovich's demeanor swung from cooperative to visibly stressed, his hands often fidgeting with the frayed edges of his work jacket. The detectives noted these fluctuations, aware that the stress of an interrogation could elicit a range of reactions from innocent nervousness to guilty agitation. The search for Gradovich's motive was challenging. He had no known connections to the Bartleys that would suggest a personal vendetta, and his financials did not immediately indicate a payment for criminal services. The detectives considered the possibility that Gradovich was a hired hitman, a theory that required solid evidence to support. The investigation unfolded against the backdrop of a nation preoccupied with the early stages of the Iraq War and the ongoing media coverage of the Kobe Bryant case, which dominated headlines and nightly news programs. The Bartley case, with its own intrigue and unanswered questions, became a local sensation, with residents of Scottsdale and viewers of networks like KSAZ Fox 10 Phoenix following each development. As the detectives delved deeper into Gradovich's past and his actions on the night of the murders, they hoped to uncover the missing link that would solve the puzzle of the Bartley homicides. The community, still in shock from the brutal crime, awaited the resolution of a case that had exposed the darker undercurrents beneath their seemingly idyllic surroundings. A pivotal breakthrough in the Bartley murder case was achieved when the Scottsdale Police Department's investigation into Brian Gradovich's alibi yielded discrepancies. Gradovich, the handyman whose van was spotted on traffic cameras near the crime scene, initially provided investigators with a seemingly solid alibi. However, upon closer examination, his account of his whereabouts began to unravel, exposing a series of lies that could not be ignored. Detectives Matthew Riggins and Elisa Cortez, who had been meticulously piecing together the sequence of events, discovered that Gradovich's phone records contradicted his statement. Calls were made that placed him in the vicinity of the Bartleys' mansion at the estimated time of the murders, undermining his claims of being elsewhere. The forensics team, working with the precision that mirrored the meticulous approach of television's CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, a popular show of the era, found traces of DNA that further implicated Gradovich. In a stunning turn of events, further digging into Gradovich's background revealed a clandestine operation unbefitting his public persona. He was leading a double life as a hitman, a shocking revelation that sent ripples through the Scottsdale community. The investigation uncovered that James Bartley, the victim, had orchestrated a plan to have his wife Claudette murdered to claim her substantial life insurance policy and to start anew with his mistress, Danielle Court-Ison. The evidence against Gradovich was damning, and the case that had once seemed like a senseless act of violence now appeared to be a meticulously planned execution gone awry. The Scottsdale Police Department had pieced together a narrative of deceit that would lead to the arrest of a murderer and the shocking implication of one of the victims in the plot. As the details of the case emerged, they painted a sordid picture of betrayal. The community's false sense of security, once bolstered by the presence of luxury cars like Mercedes-Benz and Lexus lining the driveways, was irrevocably shattered. On the morning of July 25, 2003, under the oppressive heat of the Arizona sun, the Scottsdale Police Department executed a swift and decisive arrest in the Bartley murder case. Brian Gradovich, the handyman whose van had been captured on traffic camera footage near the scene, was apprehended without incident at his modest residence, a stark contrast to the opulence of the Bartley mansion. The arrest was the culmination of a meticulous investigation that had spanned several days, marked by intense scrutiny of forensic evidence and alibi verification. The case, which had gripped the local community, was also beginning to draw national attention, with comparisons being drawn to the intrigue of the recently released Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, where nothing was as it seemed. Gradovich, caught off guard by the arrest, had believed his meticulous planning would ensure his evasion of law enforcement. However, the Scottsdale police, with a precision that echoed the FBI's recent capture of the infamous DC snipers the previous year, had pieced together the evidence to dismantle his facade of innocence. The Bartley children faced the media storm, their grief compounded by the revelation of their father's involvement in the plot to murder their mother. The case had revealed a twisted tale of familial betrayal that resonated with the public, receiving coverage on major news networks like CNN and making headlines in local papers such as the Scottsdale Daily Progress. Detectives Matthew Riggins and Elisa Cortez, who had been at the forefront of the investigation, were commended for their dedication. The Scottsdale community, still in shock, began to process the reality that the murder in the mansion was not the result of a random act of violence but a premeditated plot that had gone fatally awry. As the monsoon season loomed, promising to break the scorching heat, the storm clouds of the case began to dissipate, offering some solace to a community shaken by the dark underbelly of greed and deception. The trial of Brian Gradovich for the Bartley murders commenced with a media presence reminiscent of the high-profile court battles that dominated the airwaves, such as the Lacey Peterson case. The prosecution, led by the formidable Ada Simmons, presented a narrative of premeditated murder to the jury, a story that had all the elements of a prime-time legal drama. The courtroom, a microcosm of the Scottsdale community's shaken trust, was filled with anticipation as witnesses took the stand. The prosecution meticulously laid out the evidence, the damning phone records, the DNA traces, and the traffic camera footage that placed Gradovich at the scene. The defense, led by the experienced Holly Keating, countered with pleas for leniency, highlighting Gradovich's lack of prior offenses and attempting to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. The trial unfolded against the backdrop of July 2003, a time when the United States was still reeling from the start of the Iraq War and the nation's music charts were topped by hits like 50 Cent's 21 Questions. The Scottsdale community, however, was singularly focused on the outcome of the trial, seeking closure for a crime that had ripped through the veneer of their suburban peace. Local news outlets, including KTVK3 TV, provided daily updates on the proceedings, and the story was picked up by national media, adding to the already tense atmosphere. The courtroom drama reached its climax when the jury, after hours of deliberation, returned with a guilty verdict. Gradovich was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, a verdict that resonated with the gravity of his crimes. The Bartley family, present throughout the trial, was torn between the relief of justice served and the irreplaceable loss of their loved ones. As the judge announced the sentence, there was a palpable sense of finality in the courtroom. The case that had once dominated local headlines and conversations in coffee shops around the city was reaching its conclusion. In the aftermath of the trial, the Bartley children took the helm of their family business, determined to rebuild from the ruins of tragedy. The community of Scottsdale, forever marked by the case, began the slow process of healing, reminded of the fragility of life and the complexities of human relationships. In the wake of the trial that captivated Scottsdale, life gradually began to reshape itself amid the remnants of the Bartley case. The children of the late James and Claudette Bartley, now without parents, took on the mantle of the family's multi-million-dollar car rental business. With the entrepreneurial spirit they inherited, they sought to honor their parents' legacy while navigating the waters of public scrutiny and personal grief. The community, which once felt insulated from such heinous acts, had been starkly reminded of the potential for darkness lurking behind closed doors. Local businesses, such as the upscale Scottsdale Fashion Square, saw residents gather not just for shopping but for support and discussion, processing the events that had unfolded. In coffee shops, where patrons sipped on beverages from Starbucks, a brand that had become synonymous with early 2000s culture, conversations often turned to the trial and its impact. Paulina Shaughnessy, the security guard whose initial interrogation had piqued public interest, continued her career. Cleared of any wrongdoing, she remained a steadfast figure within the security industry, her aspirations undeterred by the shadow the case had cast over her life. Danielle "Danny" Court-Ison, whose affair with James Bartley had thrust her into the limelight, chose to leave Scottsdale behind in search of a fresh start. Her departure was a quiet one, a stark contrast to the media frenzy that had documented her every move during the investigation. Detectives Matthew Riggins and Elisa Cortez, hailed for their work on the case, found themselves moving on to new challenges, though the echoes of the Bartley investigation lingered in their careers. The case had become a defining moment, a testament to their dedication and a reminder of the complexities inherent in their line of work. As the year progressed, the nation's attention shifted to other events, the ongoing war in Iraq and the anticipation of the Mars exploration rovers landing on the Red Planet. But for the residents of Scottsdale, the murder in the mansion remained a sobering narrative, one that would be recounted for years to come. The murder in the mansion of Scottsdale remains a stark reminder of the depths of human deceit and the fragility of trust. This has been True Crime Case Files, where we remember the victims, explore the evidence, and seek justice in the darkest of tales. Thank you for joining us. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and we'll see you next time. Hey, True Crime Case Solvers, interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe, True Crime Case Solvers.